Welcome to Disabling Apologetics Podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and today I want us to talk about something that is very niche, very different, and not something that a lot of people are talking about, and it is disability studies. So, I recorded a short video a while back on ableism. And where ableism comes from is disability studies. So I want us to kind of take a bit of a dive into what disability studies is and why it is not the best thing to follow in today's culture, as well as kind of the history behind where something like this has come from. And I will say this, a caveat is that not everything out of disability studies is a complete and utter waste, but it is also something that you should take with a grain of salt as well, okay? Like when I recorded that video about disableism, I looked it up and looked at what all of these different people were talking about when it came to ableism, and the general understanding or general definition of ableism that I had found was that those with disabilities are a victim of society because society does not create things that are more accessible to those with a form of handicap, whether that be a intellectual handicap or one that has a physical handicap. And yes, I'm using disability and handicap interchangeably right now. So let's dive into talking about disability studies. All right, so disability studies is founded upon the idea that disability is something that is unjustly done to people rather than something they happen to experience or as a result of a disabling problem. And that is that is what the idea is in today's culture. It's not that, hey, Josh, you were born with something that is out of your control. No. It's essentially that anybody can be disabled due to something that is unjustly done to that person. Sounds crazy, but that is what the culture and the idea behind disability studies, where it's coming from. Okay, so rather than seeing disabilities as a certain kind of deviations from normal human functioning that are or can be impairing, ready for this? Critical studies of disability view the issue socially and in terms of systematic power, essentially ableism. So the idea is that being disabled has more to do with the social construct or the social structure of someone's economic value or just where they line up within the range or scope of society. And so for me, when it comes to intersectionality, that is what is a part of all of this critical studies is intersectionality. So intersectionality, for me, it would be a bit of a problem. Even though I have a physical disability, also I am, you ready for this? I am white, I am straight, and I am a Christian. So on the systematic power, I am like all the way up on the top. I am the bourgeoisie in Karl Marx's idea, although he didn't think of cultural Marxism. He just had purely economic Marxism, but cultural Marxism, the bourgeoisie are those that are at the top of the food chain, and critical race theory, cultural Marxism, says that those who are white, I almost forgot, cisgendered, because that's a real term, and straight, also that are religiously a Christian, are then the oppressors. And so I only have like one tiny little box that I can check off in the intersectionality triangle, food chain, food pyramid, I guess we could use. And that means that, well, just because you're disabled, just because you have a physical limitation, that doesn't mean anything because you have all of these other things working against you or working for you in the intersectionality, in the cultural Marxist, within the critical theory dynamic. And so within the systematic power, you are someone that is on the top of the food chain or food pyramid. So disability studies comes from critical theory, all right? Critical theory is the idea that socially there is a power struggle between the oppressors and the oppressed. All right, the bourgeoisie versus those that are the proletariats. All right, in Karl Marx's Marxist ideas. All right, so specifically, disability studies posits that society is set up by the able-bodied in ways that enable some people, the able-bodied, to access it, but by failing to fully accommodate people with impairments, they are disabling certain people, those with disabilities, all right, from being able to access, and we're talking about equality here, all right, being able to access it. So we're talking about equality also within this sphere. So when I hear the term ableism and I am watching all these videos on TikTok and on social media, and a lot of it is saying that, well, this is ableism. What I am seeing and hearing is ableism because it is offensive, number one, or that it is something that is not allowing for me to have access to be, in the evolutionary standpoint, fully human. So think about it this way, and I use this example in my short video. I have never been really good at using change as in like money and quarters, dimes, nickels, dollar bills. And so it is ableist that our government or society has created coins that I cannot physically use very well, or they're going to fumble all over the floor. And so our government is then, by definition, ableist because using change is not very accessible to me. Weird. Or how about this? I really want to use something that is like the monkey bars. So growing up, I could barely even use the monkey bars. Still can't use the monkey bars, or I will slip off and fall right on my head. Backwards or forward, don't even matter. So monkey bars are ableist to me because it does not give me the correct access to do and or function in a way that other people can while using the monkey bars. So they need to create something that is similar to monkey bars, but that I can use it as an adult or other children can use. Also, what else? I recently made a video about how, this is how I tie my shoes. Yes, I can actually tie my shoes. I learned how to tie my shoes at the same exact timeline as any other child would. But I also figured out as I got older, why even do that if all my shoes I'm going to be wearing are going to be tight anyway. So let me just get elastic, either elastic shoelaces or just pre-tie them underneath the tongue. Well, let's just say they never created elastic shoelaces. Well, my goodness, all shoes everywhere are ableist. Whoever creates shoes and they've got and you have to tie them, then you know what, that is ableist to me, because let's say I can't tie my shoes, although I can. well, that's just being ableist. So I need those like old man Skechers that just slip on. Those are the only shoes that are not ableist towards me, because socially I wouldn't be able to tie my shoes, or I just wouldn't be able to tie my shoes, which makes me oppressed by the shoe factory. Something like that. It's not equal to me. I actually want to show you guys a video real quick of something that I had found on TikTok that had to do with ableism, and I have to show it to you because one, it was quite hilarious to me to watch it, and also curious to me as well. And then we'll kind of keep diving into what all this means. All right, so here we go. We got this guy right here that is in a wheelchair. So I've seen some videos from him on TikTok and everything, and this is apparently his wife. I say apparently. This is his wife. All right, and just watch this video and just kind of see what you think about it. It's it is quite interesting, I think.
We're a married couple.
Does that make you want to leave a comment saying there's no way we're actually a married couple?
Or that she's cheated on me?
Or that he's paying me?
Uh-oh.
Ableism alert.
Wee woo, wee woo.
Disabled people can and do make wonderful romantic partners and are just as worthy as non-disabled people.
So you should take those comments and shove them up your...
All right, so that was the video, and it was kind of interesting, right? They talked about how, people will ask questions, or they will just assume what the relationship is between this individual that has a disability in a wheelchair and this I say individual, this man and this woman. And hey, you know what? Great for the both of them as a married couple. And of course, it is. I would agree in the sense that it is offensive to just sit there and go, well, she must be in it for the money. That's exactly what's going on. There is no way that they are together, because look at him. He is not really a functioning member of society, essentially. Okay? Now, to sit there and call that ableism is to fall in line with the idea of social construct, but disability studies, that this is a systematic power problem, and that we need to be able to say that he is equally as functioning as everybody else. Well, number one, the only thing that is equal between him and me would certainly be the fact that he is created in the image of God with human value, okay, being made in the image of God, as well as his wife. But to sit there and call that ableist is to go down the social construct rabbit trail and say that he is one that is oppressed because people are asking questions. Well, number one, if you put yourself in the limelight, guess what? You're going to be questioned sometimes. Just roll with it, man. Seems like you guys are doing well anyway, so just roll with it. Has nothing to do with equality. It just has to do with people being sinful and as well as curious too, right? To see the intentions behind the camera, the intentions behind the wife as well. There's nothing wrong with being curious. Now, if you're going to be just sitting there slandering the people, the couple, then yeah, that is something that is absolutely wrong. So they had this idea in their head that it is ableist to sit there and question their relationship. But the question for me is, why would someone question that relationship anyways? Now, I'm not trying to invoke that I understand the intention behind people's hearts when they ask those questions, but it is also possible that people are asking those questions and making those comments because of statistics, okay, that those with disabilities, as severe as this gentleman's, would be considered, someone that would be like living at home with their mother in the basement for the rest of their life. Right? That is what we would possibly think about this. Whether it be correct or incorrect, but that is oftentimes our thought process. And so when we see a lady like that as his wife, you're going, hold up, what? Is that reality? Well, take it with a grain of salt, but also, sit there and go, all right, well, if that is true, then, maybe it is. And in any sense, it has nothing to do with equality when people are asking those questions. It has nothing to do with ableism when people are asking those questions. Just roll with it, man. It's totally fine. It is okay for people to ask those questions, and of course, you're going to deal with people that are going to be insulting you. That is just how people are, because they are sinful creatures. Yes, made in the image of God, but separated from Him, and just sinful, bro. So let's get back to the idea here. So the equality, equally depending on equitability. So this arises from what is called social model of disability. Okay, so which in its beginning wasn't radically constructive. Okay, and contributed to useful and important changes that improved accessibility for the disabled in society. So this is where it comes from. 1980. All right. Around 1980, this social model of disability originated with the scholar and activist Michael Oliver. So he placed the responsibility of society to enable everyone equally, often by increasing accessibility through reasonable improvements like increasing the availability of handicapped parking spaces, access ramps, elevators, handicapped bathroom facilities, and just subtle little things that can actually help people out that have problems, being a productive member of society. And so this person, Michael Oliver, in 1980, he was a scholar that took on the responsibility of writing about these things, and society did follow along. And of course, there is something to take away from that, hey, if you're in a wheelchair, you can get into a building much easier, 90% of the time or 99% of the time. You can access any government building a whole lot easier because there are wheelchair ramps. All right, even though that the angle or degree of going up that ramp may be a little bit steep sometimes, you still have the ability to go into a building, right? That's exactly it. Now, what else? Ooh. As most people in contemporary advanced societies would fully agree that this is something that is good. This is a change that led to accessibility, and accommodations are generally seen by nearly everyone as improvements. Agreed. And the only reason as to why this would come about is if you find value in human beings in general. Now, Frank Turek has a book called Stealing from God. All right. Stealing from God is the idea that those that have an atheistic worldview and or any worldview that is most likely contradictory to the Christian worldview, which would be all of them, but particularly the atheistic worldview, which is where a lot of the disability studies, as well as critical theory, intersectionality, all of that stuff comes from, is a atheistic worldview. Now, if one is going to be honest with their worldview, you hear me? If you're going to be honest from an atheistic perspective, an atheistic worldview, there is zero need to create anything accessible for those with disabilities. Why, you might ask? Because they will not be productive members of society. To further the advancement of the human being as a whole, as a society, there will not be any progress or way in which someone with a disability is going to offer something valuable from an atheistic perspective, from an atheistic world view. So, when I read all of this from disability studies and the fact that someone in 1980 had decided and thought through the idea that in order for a society to be responsible in taking care of those with disabilities, we ought to offer and create accessibility for those with disabilities. Michael Oliver, in this study, has an atheistic worldview. So he's not being honest with his worldview on view with the understanding or with the idea of what it means to have a disability in a society, in a secular society. So what they're doing is stealing from God. They're stealing ethics from God. They're stealing the idea of what it means to be human from God, being made in the image of God with value. Does that make sense? With value. We are equally created in the image of God. We are not equally set on this earth. Okay. But we are equally created in the image of God, which then puts value on a person, on an individual, on people that have disabilities to then hopefully be productive members of society. And or it doesn't even matter if you're a productive member of society because you're created in the image of God, meaning that you have value in the humanness, the characteristics of being a human. That does not come from an atheistic worldview. That comes from a Christian worldview. That doesn't even come from an Islamic worldview, where you have no value in being a Christian. You have no value in being a Jew. You have no value in being a member of anything that's not being a Muslim. You are valueless until you become a Muslim. Same thing with atheism. You are no value to society until you become a productive member of society. To progress humanity down the road. All right, let's keep going here as well. I'm reading off of my computer. That's what I'm doing. All right. So the social model largely replaces an early understanding of disability, which saw it as an individual or medical issue that needed to be addressed by the individual and her doctors. As noted, there was much value in this shift of responsibility, at least until it got theorized, and more recently used within social justice beliefs. Wow. So disability studies today are almost entirely dominated by the social justice approach, which draws from heavily influences by, and I'm going to butcher this name, Michael Foucault. Yeah, doesn't matter. I guess it matters a little bit. His work on social construction around madness and sexuality. Such an interesting turn of events right there. As such, most of the work in disability studies today argues that unjust power dynamics about disabilities are socially constructed by scientific and medical discourses that assume it is preferable if all one's body parts work and seek to cure or mitigate conditions in which they don't function. That is such an interesting turn of events, that disabilities used to be looked at as something that you would talk to your doctor about, that, hey, I'm blind. Duh. I need you to just helped me learn how to be able to function in a society, just function in general in life. Or for me, like, I was fairly independent growing up. My parents did teach me to be independent. Other than like getting my clothes washed and dried, no joke. If you've seen a washer before, oftentimes they're going to be top loaders, which means that I'm like 5'4", and also my arms are really, really short, obviously. And I remember as a kid, I would look down that dark hole at the clothes at the bottom of the washer and go, there is no way. I would try and get my clothes in. Oftentimes, I would fall in and not be able to get back out. Sounds funny. So I learned very quickly, I need to get someone to get this out because clearly I am not going to, or get one of those little claw things that you can just, one piece at a time out of the washer. But things like that, I had to figure out how to make that work so that my clothes would be washed and dried. What did I do? Well, my parents had created for me younger siblings. And so when they got old enough and taller than me with obviously longer arms, I said, hey, can you go and get those clothes for me? Thank you very much. And I will get them out of the dryer at some point. So that is what I did. I learned how to work with my limitation, but it did not stop me from going and doing things. But when it came to having a disability, we learned about it in the hospital when I was born. Doctors looked at me, looked at my parents, looked at me and go, oh, snap. We got to get him on a helicopter and fly him to UNC Chapel Hill and, make sure that he is alive, and keep him alive and do all these different surgeries over the next 10 to 15 years. And up and including when I had broken my neck when I was 21. So about 10 years ago, the end of June, I had neck surgery. Well, thankfully, because of the medical staff, they decided to help me out with that. Has nothing to do with theorizing anything about social justice that, hey, this person has a limitation and we're going to do our best as medical professionals to help him or her learn how to, have a productive life, no matter what that looks like, right? And so, drawing on this guy's postmodern analysis of power, knowledge, and what is this? Biopower explicity? Specifically, interesting how this all is tied together. Just as homosexuality was once thought to be a disorder needing treatment due to moralistic prejudice against the LGBT people, this approach theorized that we also perceive disability as a problem to be treated because of moralistic prejudice against disabled people. For this reason, disability studies today draws very significantly upon, very interesting, queer theory, and tends to see being disabled as just another way to be queer. Well, that's definitely not what I thought of when I was born. Not that I could really think about it or theorize it. Or as I got older, that's definitely not what I thought about when it came to disabilities, is that it is just another portion of queer theory, essentially just subverting or disrupting the normativity of society. Wow. A lot of just weird theorizing that has been subjugated into thinking about disabilities right here. And all of this produces the idea of ableism, right? The belief that it is better or more normal to be able-bodied than to be, and to be not to be disableism, which is prejudice against disabled people, including especially as a function of systematic power. So when I'm reading this, and you can find all this information on New Discourses. James Lindsay, I think, is who has done all of this study and put all of the notes together on all this. So I'm reading part of what he talks about of disability studies. And so what he's saying is that ableism has more to do about the able-bodied, and disableism has more to do against the prejudice against disabled people. So when I am seeing this video on ableism, it sounds as though they are using the term ableism incorrectly, which so often happens from the more liberal theorization of things, of social justice, is that they use terms and try to redefine these terms that were already created by people on that political or social side. And so they're using ableism incorrectly and should be using the term disableism, prejudice against disabled people, including talking about systematic power. So these are theorized as being akin to, are you ready for it? Racism, sexism, and of course, homophobia. Also sometimes argued that the belief that a fully functioning body is preferable to one with impairments is merely a product of neoliberal society that wants all people to be able to work to further its capitalistic and consumerist goals. Again, being a productive member of society. This is this is all an atheistic view, which again is interesting because they are pulling from a standard of morality that it is wrong to be prejudiced against someone with a disability because they are not going to particularly be a productive member of society. They are coming up with morality, a standard of morality outside of themselves, saying that this is wrong, so this is ableism or disableism, and we need to come up with a theory because, we need to have social justice. It's interesting when we talk about this and look at things like this, because it shows me that even in a very weird sense, in a very not normal sense, they are still saying that there is morality, even though, and I am very certain that those that have these theories and these ideas and these worldviews believe that truth does not exist. However, they are trying to say that there is a standard of morality outside of themselves, or that they are the arbiters of this standard of morality, which means that there is, in their view, an objective standard of how people ought to be treated based upon a power struggle and a power system of, hey, these are the oppressors, these are the bourgeoisie, and these are the oppressed, those that are the proletariats, those that have disabilities. Now, if you are one that is seemingly fully functioning as someone that has a limitation or has a disability, a title disability based on what a medical analysis is, but you're also white, straight, cisgendered, Christian, male, and you just list off all the other words in the power struggle, then you know what? You are actually the oppressor, not the oppressed. So disability studies, again, it comes out of social justice. It does not come out of something that is morally good. Caveat, though, there has been some good things that have come out from this theorization in 1980, where there are now accessibility for those that cannot walk, or just things that people can use to live a more productive life, or live a life that is more accessible to them. That's a good thing. Great. For me, I used to go and work out. Don't do that anymore. But I couldn't lift a bar. So what I had found were these wrist straps that had hooks on the bottom of them that you could hook onto a bar, and you could do like deadlifts or squats and things like that. Made it much more accessible for me to then go and work out with some friends of mine and, squat 100 pounds or 150 pounds and do things like that. It was great being able to have that access and ability to go and work out and be a part of that friend group as well. That's great that those things have come about, but the whole theory the theory as a whole has not been good for those with disabilities, as thinking of themselves as a victim, or thinking of themselves as being oppressed by the proletariat, or by those that are whatever the oppressor class is in our very liberal society that we live in today. So kind of in closing, I want you guys to realize that although there are theories about disabilities called disability studies that come out of critical theory, and critical theory, again, critical race theory, so we would usually call CRT, or just the idea of intersectionality, cultural Marxism, all of these ideas that are very closely, if not just mirrors of themselves, they are not what reflects reality. Okay? They are not what reflects reality. They come out of ideas that truth does not exist, yet also try to steal from God a standard of morality and a standard of truth, and yet tell the Christians that they are not being charitable enough, they are not moral, their Bible is not correct, their Bible is corrupt because it hates homosexuality, and not very friendly towards those with disabilities. Or the Old Testament says that well, someone that has disabilities must be something wrong with their parents, or something like that. These are sinners that are thinking sinfully, that truth does not exist, and that the Bible has erred, and that it is okay to go out and be sinful, albeit they do not believe that it is a sin to follow in this path of living. And so my last thought is this: social justice is a disease on our society, because it is saying that there are some good people and some bad people, and the only good people are those that are oppressed, those that are within the social construct of intersectionality. Those are the only good people, and everybody else is racist, sexist, disableist, homophobic, and everything else. And so what they're doing is the logical fallacy of generalization, generalizing an entire people group based on their skin color, their being, we'll say, able-bodied, their being from a particular religious class, most likely going to be Christianity, as well as their economic status. Whether they're even rich or not doesn't even matter. Also based on their gender. generalizing an entire population and saying, hey, you are the oppressor, while then you have this other multiple groups of people and putting them into a group or ranking them, I guess you'd say, based on which characteristics, and we could even say some, not all, but some characteristics that they cannot get away from, such as having a physical disability or intellectual disability, as well as skin color or gender. Characteristics about a person that is innate in them. That is wrong, that is incorrect, and does not reflect reality. And we need to get back to a standard of morality that reflects truth. That, hey, yes, we do think of someone that has a disability as valuable, not because they have a physical limitation, but because they are made in the image of God. They are made in the image of God. With a consciousness, with a soul, with a body. And if some of you think of it, a spirit. But they are made in the image of God. That is why we have a standard of respect, a standard of not denigrating, or a standard of justice towards those who have been maligned or treated unfairly. It's because we have a standard of reality, standard of morality, standard of justice outside of ourself that comes from God. Not from what you say or from what I say, not from what social justice says, not from what some liberal politician says, or even some conservative politician says. It comes from a standard of reality outside of ourselves that comes from God, the creator, the arbiter, the lawgiver. And the only one that has given these laws is the God of the Bible that reflects reality. Not the God, Allah from Islam, not Confucius, not anything from Hinduism, okay? Not anything from atheism. Science did not create laws. In fact, science has to have a philosophy prior to doing science of standards that are going to be objective to then find out if the scientific analysis is correct, because they have to have a standard outside of themselves to show that something is scientifically proven. And here's the thing, is science never actually says a thing. It's the scientist that says things. Science is just a method of something with a philosophy behind it. We would usually call it the scientific method that has a standard. Again, you're stealing from God and having a standard of something outside of yourself to then formulate your own opinions, whether those opinions reflect reality or not. So, now that I will finally close, ableism is just an idea that someone is being prejudiced against another person with a disability, or a group of people are being prejudiced against someone with a disability. When we say disability, we mean with a medically a medical condition that says that someone has a limitation. I don't have a full definition. I'm just coming up with something right now. A disability, someone that has a limitation, okay, physical or intellectual disability. Ableism is the idea from the world that you are being prejudiced against them. And here's the thing, is oftentimes, like we just saw from that video, is that this prejudice can be completely subjective. I'm feeling prejudice. I'm feeling that the government is being prejudiced against me because they have, and still do, create not pennies anymore, but dollars, quarters, dimes, and all money change, and I cannot fully grasp onto it with my hands. And so I am feeling as though the government is prejudiced against me, and they need to fix it and make change more accessible to me so that I can buy things. Dumb thing to say, but that's the idea. It is my opinion about something. It is not that which reflects reality. It is what reflects reality that I have a difficult time, but that does not mean that the government is out to get me because I cannot handle quarters and dimes. Same thing when people are making comments, or you feel as though because someone's asking you a question about, hey, what happened to you? Just don't take it personal, bro. Grow a pair. Guess what? People do want to know what is wrong with you, and that's okay. Because as I have come to notice is that what I have is actually a gift, and able for me, something that I can use as a testimony to reflect that which God has allowed sin to create, even though he made me in his image. I can say in the general sense that God created me this way. Even though theologically, I would also say that God allowed sin to form this deformation in the womb. And it's okay that kids oftentimes ask me the questions of, hey, what happened to your arms? And sometimes I will say that, hey, I was created by God, or, God created me this way. It's an opening for me to talk to them about Jesus. It's an opening to talk about who Christ is and why he died on the cross for my sins and was raised 3 days later. And that is the gospel. And because of him, I have eternal life, an eternal reward. But I'm also made in the image of God, so I am valuable as a human being. Or I can go down the rabbit trail of saying that I was bit by a shark, or the lawnmower, got my hand, or something ridiculous to scare them or make myself laugh, or other adults laugh in the room. I don't often do that. Usually when kids ask me that question, again, I don't get offended. I just tell them the truth that, generally speaking, that God created me this way. And, this is actually a gift, not a burden. And I will say that it took me a long time for me to come to the conclusion that it is not a burden, but a gift to have this. So, generally speaking, be nice to your neighbors. Share the gospel at any time that you can. Literally, you have opportunities all the time to share the gospel, to give a defense as to why you have the hope that is within you, to show that there is a standard of morality, a standard of truth outside of ourselves that points to our Creator, our lawgiver, God the Father, the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and that God the Father sent his Son, Jesus, to die on the cross for our sins and be raised 3 days later so that we can have the free gift of salvation if you believe in Jesus. See you guys next time.